So there's a lot we could talk about with the scriptures today, and I tend to think that just about every week when we're up here. And I'm kind of going to steal a little bit of my own thunder by telling you exactly what I'm focusing in on today. I tend to, especially the last few months, focus in on specific words or phrases or just one verse from the whole scripture. And the things that were really drawing me in this past week or two, especially given the events that we would have today, were two verses in Acts where we are told, so that they would search for God and perhaps grope for him and find him. Indeed, he is not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being, as even some of our own poets have said, for we too are his offspring. And then again in John, Jesus said, in a little while the world will no longer see me, but you will see me. Because I live, you also will live. On that day you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. It's all a little bit confusing at times. A little bit of things that we can't understand all the time as humans, because we like to hold things in our hands and be able to have something concrete and say, I know what this looks like because it's here. And when we hear these words, I'm in my Father and you're in me and I'm in you, that all gets a little confusing, but that's kind of the whole point of it as well anyway. To me, God is something that we will never have the ability until we're there at home with God to know exactly what all this is about and just how big God is. Every week, every Sunday morning usually, and other days too, I kind of fumble with the light switches in the back there. Even though I see there's a note there now that somebody put there to help them with a service and it hasn't been removed. I haven't read the note, and I just kind of flip through the switches. One of them is on a different switch and it's connected to one up here, so depending if one's up or down, that one has to be up or down. And to be honest, even though it's bright out, it's not dark in here when I do this, usually. I just play with them till all the lights are on. And I get it right because I know that all the switches will come back on. That's the way it works. They're there on the wall. I don't have to search around. I can find them if I wanted to in the dark. And if I just switch long enough, I'll get it right. It's really not that confusing, but it might be funny to watch if you see me flicker lights on and off. In fact, I think somebody turned the cross on for me today because I forgot to do that this morning. I noticed it is on though, and I'm glad. Even in the light, even though I can see it every Sunday and many other days of the week, I still don't have which exact switch is different than the others down in my memory. I just flip through them and they come on. If I were to do this in the dark without having the gift of light to see where I am, it really wouldn't be any different. I know I could find those light switches in the dark, and I know that if I play around long enough, the lights will come on and I'll find them all. The switches are going to stay there in that wall. They don't disappear just because it's dark inside this room. Only on very rare occasions would the power actually be out and they wouldn't come on. Though we fumble around and grope in the dark, as the scripture tells us today, the lights are always there on the wall. Perhaps when you were a child, you were scared of the dark. I think I remember being a little bit fearful of it and having a nightlight in my bedroom just to kind of help to know, okay, that's where the wall is when you were young. Now maybe as you're older you might leave the bathroom door cracked a little bit to provide some light to find a way there, but in reality if you're in a room that you've been living in or a house for a certain amount of time, you could probably get through with the lights off. You might stub your toe on the couch, but you would know your way around even though the lights aren't on. You know everything that's there in your surroundings, and that couches don't just get up and move. They stay in the same spot. Even when I'm hunting or camping or when I was a Boy Scout, I always had a little bit of a journey myself with the darkness. I remember when I first started doing those things, I was a little bit afraid to go out into the woods in the dark, and the more I did it, the more comfortable I got, and it almost became something that I looked forward to. There was a time when I was a scout at Camp Pine Grove that I had been there so much that I'll bet I could have got around the whole place even off the paths without a flashlight. I knew it that well in the darkness from playing games of capture the flag and war. I guess you guys probably still do the same thing, right? Yes, that's what I thought. And you could probably wander around. There's a lot less trees though out there now. We had to work around some serious trees. And I do have some scars to prove that. But we knew the way around even in the dark, because the worst thing you could have on a capture the flag game is a flashlight to help you get around. You kind of lose that way if people can see you. And as we got older, we weren't as scared as we were when we were younger scouts. We knew that the trees don't just disappear and the rocks are in the same place they've always been. Even now when I hunt and I go back to places I hunted 20 years ago when I lived here, some of the same things are there that were there long ago, and I'm comfortable in the darkness going into those places. In a new place, not so much. I get a little nervous sometimes walking in the dark, even with a flashlight. Things seem to make noises that I've never heard before and then turn out to be a field mouse or something like that. But we get fearful of things we can't see sometimes. Bruce mentioned that Deb's biker name is Banshee, and in the hiking world, though I'm a little bit removed from it now, I plan to get back in very soon, we have our own names. We call them trail names, and mine happens to be Old Hat. And there for a few summers, if you were traveling, there's a reason for that. If I brought that hat into this church, we'd have to tent it and defumigate the whole church. It's a pretty rough looking hat. But I still have it, and I take it with me on every hike I go on, though I'm pretty sure it's a health violation to wear it these days. But I do. I put it on from time to time. And I earned the hat. Some guy from Canada gave it to me in Shenandoah National Park, or the name, after he saw the hat. But we have our same kind of world out there. And one time I went hiking, probably for some of the same reasons some guys and girls go and buy their motorcycles. I had to get over a girl at the time. And so I decided I was going to hike all of Pennsylvania on the Appalachian Trail in 2 weeks. It didn't quite turn out that way. I got 108 miles though in about 8 days, and it was a very, very spiritual experience. I will tell you that for sure. Somewhere along the way, and it was about 3 or 4 days in, I was hiking through the Cumberland Valley. Most of Pennsylvania, the Appalachian Trail is along the ridgetops, but this was August, and it was hot, and I was through the valley for most of the day, walking on some pretty bad blisters from a thunderstorm the day before. I do things a little differently now than I did when I was a scout. I take a lot less things because I've learned you don't need a shovel all the time, but it's good to be prepared. And I've also learned that no matter how many ponchos you have, walking 5 hours in a thunderstorm, your feet will get wet and you will get blisters. And so I did, and I still kept on the journey. But in the Cumberland Valley, I can tell you that that day was when I realized something about God's presence in my life that I will never ever be able to put into words. It's an understanding I can't explain, and I wish I could, but it's something like the scriptures today. Something like that God is really in me, that close all the time. Not that I am God, but that God is a part of me and I am part of God's world, and that we are all called to do those things. I learned it that day in a way that I never thought I could. I don't know how or why it came to me that day, but it did. And I realized that that hiking trip had nothing to do with a girl and had everything to do with me and God. I went a few more days in that hike and made it almost to Maryland, and I did not finish the northern half. I did later. I've now done several states on the Appalachian Trail. I'm not sure if I'll do any more or not, but I did enjoy it when I did it. But that was a really, really spiritual experience for me. I learned that something like Ezekiel mentions in his visions. Just 2 weeks ago in the baptism that we did here, I wrote to the letter to the child, and I mentioned that your parents will focus on you as if you are a wheel inside a wheel. And that comes from a reference to a vision Ezekiel had. Focused on something inside you focus on, and that's really a little hard to understand, but yet somehow now I know I get it. It's all very complicated, but it's always right there at the very center of our lives. We are all like wheels inside a wheel. Each one of us, no matter how different we appear today, are a part of that wheel that God has. And we are the hub of the wheel at the same time. And inside our lives, there's more hubs and centers in our children and our loved ones. But yet they're all still the very focus of God, just like they are with us. Thinking of the darkness again and groping around, about a week and a half ago I met with an elderly man in our community who is battling cancer right now and knows that eventually the cancer will probably win in his case. He has a lot of fears right now. He says to me that he didn't live a very good life all the time, and he seems to be afraid of some of the sins he feels like he has committed in his life. But he told me at the same time that he prays every night to God for forgiveness and that he would go to heaven. And I explained to him that there's really nothing more to worry about, though I understand his worry, that you can let those sins alone. If you know that there's a God to go to pray to, you're doing enough already. You've already acknowledged the belief in God, the belief in the forgiveness of sins, and that comes through Jesus Christ. There's no repentance he has to make at this point in his life, and nothing to undo. Most of it can't be undone. He seemed to get a little more peace about it as we talked, and then he shared to me that, and this man is in his 80s, but he admitted to me that he's afraid of the darkness. Of course, I thought right away he was talking about death, but what he was really talking about was nighttime in his house. He doesn't like when the lights go out and he can't see. And I talked to him just as I have talked to you today. I'm not sure how I thought of this, but I pointed to his recliner across the room and I said, "When's the last time that recliner has moved?" And he said, "It's been years since we moved the living room around." And I said, "But that's the same way that God is. That recliner is not going to just get up and move. It's there, and if the lights go out, you just kind of grope around for it and you'll find it. You might bump into it, but you'll get where you need to go in the darkness before you get to the light switch." God is the same way. No matter what journeys we've been on, no matter what's happened to us in life, God is immovable. Whether we're in darkness or in light, He's always going to be there, closer than we can even imagine, and in ways, like I've learned, that I just can't really put into words. His presence is much more than a couch in your living room, but yet just as immovable. The difference is you can't move God, although you could move the couch. You might think you've moved God, you might think you've moved away from God, but as Ezekiel tells us, you are the wheel inside of his wheel. Each one of us, alone and together. So we can go on our hikes, we can go on our rides, we can go on our walks, we can knit and stitch and whatever else we might do to get time alone with God. We can search and discover all we want about creation and other humans. And that is a good and healthy thing to do. But in my experience, and I believe in the experience of those who wrote the scriptures today, no matter how hard you search, no matter how many miles you travel on that search, you're going to end up finding out that God has always been a lot closer than you ever really realized. That you didn't have to travel all those miles, but sometimes, in some weird way, they're necessary to discover exactly how close God is all the time. Now, I'm not telling anyone to not go on those journeys, because at some point, when my knees finally give out, I plan on going on journeys on my own lemon at some point. Maybe, hopefully not a lemon, but I don't know, at this point it will have to be. And I'll enjoy that as well, and I'll realize along that time that God is right there with me all the time. In chapter 14 of John, verse 20, we are told, "On that day you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you." Friends, this is one of those days. It's so obvious to me from sitting up here, from seeing the little children and the Boy Scouts, and those of us who have been here our whole lives, and our new friends coming today, being brave enough to walk into a new place. It's so obvious to me from this view that right now, today, we are with God. We are with Jesus here in this place. And we are here and very present for each other. We are like wheels inside of his wheel. And today, of all days, there is no need to search. God is with us. Amen.